Have you ever heard a song and within the first few seconds, you just knew, you didn't know why, you couldn't explain it, but that song gave you goosebumps? I had one of those experiences early on listening to my dad's old records. He had a bunch of old records and a record player, and so I used to throw them on. There was one record specifically, I think it was called The Sounds of the 70s or something like that. And it was basically a compilation album. It had a bunch of different tracks on there, and there was a couple of them that I've never heard before that kind of blew me away. And one of them was School's Out for the Summer by Alice Cooper. Absolutely blew my mind as a young, I was probably, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 at the time. And the other one was the one that really blew my mind, and I think it was Paranoid by Black Sabbath. It was either Paranoid or Iron Man. Both of those songs obviously blew my mind, but I remember, it was unbelievable, gave me goosebumps, still kind of gives me a little bit of goosebumps thinking about it, but I put it on and it just mind-blowing, and I would just go back and play it over and over and over again. I know most people have had that experience at some point in their life. What's interesting to me though is that most people experience music this way. They don't hear EQ moves. They don't hear compression settings. They can't specifically pick out what microphone you use or any of the tiny decisions that were made when creating the record. They just hear the song and they decide whether they connect with it or not. And that decision, whether they like the song, is made in seconds. What I think the fascinating thing here is that feeling that they're experiencing is often a result of hundreds, sometimes thousands of tiny little decisions made throughout the entire song writing production process, and they all stack on top of each other. And most listeners won't consciously notice those decisions. They most likely won't point to a hi-hat pattern or to a vocal timing choice and tell you that that's why they love the song, but they'll absolutely feel the result of those decisions. And that is what I want to talk about today, because I think one of the biggest misconceptions in music production is believing that the small stuff doesn't matter. It does. And in fact, I think that the small decisions can completely change how a song feels. It does. And in fact, I think the small decisions are the things that completely change how a song feels. So stick around, because we're not going to just talk about this. I'm going to break this down in a song that I just produced and mixed and show you guys how these little decisions can make huge differences. When you're working on a song, it's easy to think about big categories. Good song, bad song, good mix, bad mix. But music doesn't work that way. The listener experiences the finished product as one complete emotional experience. And that experience is built on countless choices you made along the way. The sounds you choose, the performances you keep, the timing, the dynamics, the energy, the arrangement, the tone, the space, where you recorded it, the things you leave in, the things you take out. Most of these decisions seem insignificant when you're making them in isolation, or maybe not as important as they really are. And I think as artists and producers, that's really where we get tripped up the most, because it's easy to tell yourself, nobody's going to notice that. Maybe it's a slightly different drum sound. Maybe it's not re-recording a vocal take that you'd think is just okay, and you know you can make it better, but you just don't want to go back and record it. Maybe it's a tiny timing adjustment. Maybe it's using a programmed performance as opposed to a live one created in the studio. And by itself, the decision may seem meaningless. The reality is that listeners probably won't consciously notice most of them, okay? We all know that. If you ask them what changed, they may not be able to tell you, but they will feel it. They'll feel when something sounds alive. They'll feel when something feels exciting. They'll feel it when a song has movement and groove and energy, and they'll feel the emotion within the song. And they'll also feel when a song sounds flat, even if they can't explain why. Music is kind of strange that way. People judge the whole, but the whole is built on hundreds of tiny little parts. Every single one of those parts contributes something to the final experience. Not because every decision is equally important, but because they do accumulate. One decision may only improve a song by 1%, another by 0.5%. another by 2%. You get the picture. And eventually, all of those small improvements, they stack together and create something that feels significantly different. Now, one thing I do want to call out here, okay? This isn't about perfectionism. I'm not saying that you should spend 6 hours deciding between two different hi-hat samples. In fact, I think overthinking kills creativity faster than just about anything. The goal is not perfection. The goal is intention. Understanding that the choices you make matter, even when they're small. And honestly, I think it matters even more today. With AI coming out and trying to take everybody's music and recreate it, I think the human aspect of the music is going to become even more important. And that's really the thing that I think stands out the most in good music is the humanity. The little imperfections, the subtle variations, the decisions that make something feel alive instead of just simply there. So now, let's dive into the example. It's a simple example from a track that I recently produced and mixed called Echoes of the Moon by B+K. And the thing I'm going to show you isn't a secret plugin. It isn't an expensive piece of gear. It's just a hi-hat. Seriously, a hi-hat? Yes. I think a hi-hat can completely change the groove of a song, and in this case, the hi-hat was played live. In this room, I mic'd it with a stereo pair of 414s to capture it, ran it through analog gear, but that's not where the magic came from. The reason why the hi-hat fits the song so well is because it was played to the song. All right, so I have this session up here. I'm sure you can see it. So I'm going to play you the original first, and then I'm going to swap it out with two different options. So I have one option that's like if it didn't really match the same kind of hi-hat pattern, right? So that would be something like during the writing process when you're like, okay, I'm just going to slap a hi-hat in there. You know, if you're writing the song and you're producing it and you're working through it, you're like, this works, this is good enough, without really truly massaging it and listening to the song and trying to figure out what is the right choice for the hi-hat for this song. And then the other option is another version of that, which I'm using a 909 because I feel like that's a really good example because it's a digital sample as opposed to a live, recorded hi-hat example. And so it kind of gives you the other side of the coin, right? So a little background on the live hi-hat. It was recorded in this room. I put stereo 414s on it, recorded it through a 1073. I processed it separately with a Neve 8803 with some distressors and some other stuff, and then did some stuff in the box. So here's the original. I turned it up a little bit so you could get a little bit more of the feel of it. But see how, again, it's played by a real player, so it grooves in the session. It sounds great. It fits the song perfectly because it's played to the song. So let's say you didn't actually want to go that route. Let's say you were just making your beat and you just put, a 909 sample in there. Boom, you just put it exactly on all of the eighth notes. So it just sounds sterile. I don't know, it just sounds dead to me. It just sounds like it's just there, it's holding a place, and it doesn't help the song at all. And then the third version here that I can show you here is like more of, okay, you had the 909, but then you tried to finagle it to fit the beat a little bit more. So I basically took kind of the beat that was played on the hi-hat and kind of multiplied it down here. So I did do a little bit of volume changes. So you'll hear kind of some differences there that kind of fit better. But again, it's still, to me, while it sounds better than kind of the other option, it still just sounds lifeless and it doesn't have the same vibe and feel that live hi-hat has. So I'll go through the three real quick so you guys can hear the difference here. So here's the original. So as you can hear, the live hi-hat is just more lively and it just sounds like it's supposed to be there and it just fits the song. But that's what I'm talking about with these micro decisions. And it's with every piece that you have in a song. All those little decisions, they matter and they pay off to a great final product. And when you listen to these hi-hats and when you listen to other things as well too, don't focus on, is it technically right? Focus on how it makes you feel, because that's what really all of these little micro decisions are shaping. It's not just the sound of the record. While that's really important, it's more about the emotional experience of the person listening. So there you go, guys. I hope this was helpful for you. Let me know in the comments if you agree with me, if you don't agree with me, what your thoughts are. I would love to hear from you. And if there's anything I said that was helpful to you, that you liked, go ahead and give me a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. I appreciate y'all. It'll help us make more great content for you guys coming up. So I hope you all have a great day, and more than anything, keep making great music.